Hello there, today I am here to bring you something a little bit different. This is the Vegan Booktube tag, which was created by Angelica Kofa, whom I will link down below, who very kindly tagged me to do this video. I haven't really spoken much about my veganism on YouTube. It's one of those subjects that I think people are very quick to jump on you, so actually it's not something I talk about much online or in my personal life. I'm not one of these people that as soon as you meet me I'll be like, I'm a vegan. I think people are very quick to criticise, and I kind of get that. I think it's a defensive thing, thinking that vegans are going to jump on them for their meat eating, but you know, each to their own. But I am vegan, at least for the most part. I'm not one of these people that will go crazy if I end up having to eat dairy. If someone serves me dairy, I will eat it, but I made a decision about 2 years ago to stop buying dairy products, and I have stuck to that, bar the odd pizza when I'm not feeling very well. But literally my shopping is all whole foods and no dairy. I've been vegetarian for most of my life anyway. I went vegetarian when I was 7, stayed vegetarian and even went vegan for a while up until I was 14, when I started eating meat for my teen years. But when I was 19 I realised that I wasn't enjoying that, so I actually went back to a vegetarian diet. And then 2 years ago I became a vegan. So that's a bit of backstory for you. So this is going to be all about my vegan journey, vegan bookish stuff and vegan stuff that I would recommend. I'm going to be looking down here for the questions. You've been here long enough, you know that's how it works by now. So the first question is, why veganism? There's a few different reasons for this. As I've said in my backstory, I was vegetarian for the most part of my life, and I was vegetarian for a lot longer than I was vegan, and it kind of came about because I realised that the main reason I was vegetarian was because I didn't like the meat industry. Obviously I don't find any joy in eating meat anyway, and I think it's been such a long time since I did properly eat meat that there's just no joy in it for me. I never really got to a place where I needed meat in my diet because, as I say, I was really young when I became vegetarian, and even when I did start eating meat I didn't enjoy it. I found that I would much rather have a corn dish than a meat dish. So yeah, I never got into the whole meat eating thing. Obviously part of that is to do with the meat industry and the fact that farming is wrong, and I don't agree with killing animals and things like that. And I had the realisation that even though dairy in itself, there's nothing wrong with dairy products in themselves. I mean, they're not the best for your health, but there's nothing wrong ethically with dairy products in themselves for the most part. I realised I was still contributing to the farming practices that I didn't agree with. I was still contributing to the mass killing of animals by eating dairy and drinking milk and things like that. So I almost felt a bit hypocritical to carry on eating and consuming those things and contributing to that industry when I had spent so much of my life trying not to do that. So yeah, that kind of just spurred me to go vegan. Also, I did kind of realise that dairy wasn't really the best for my health, and I wasn't really enjoying eating it anymore anyway. So it kind of just all came together that I went vegan. Number 2, what content got you interested in veganism, and what content would you recommend to a friend interested in it? I would say the main people who got me interested in veganism were the Happy Pair. I will link them down below. In fact, I'll link everyone that I mention in this video down below. The Happy Pair are Irish twins who, though they aren't particularly vegan in themselves, they eat a predominantly vegan diet for health reasons mainly. And I started watching them because they are great fun and they have so much energy, and their YouTube videos are fantastic. And in watching them, like, they do recipe videos for the most part, but they also do sort of factual videos about the health benefits of veganism. A particularly interesting video they did was a video with a meat eater who had been told that they could no longer drink milk and things like that because they couldn't digest it. And they had gone through with the doctor actually how bad milk and stuff is for you. And the Happy Pair sort of go into that a little bit more, and why it's not really that great for your body to drink cow's milk and things like that. Really interesting, and they're really factual, and I think they're actually quite accessible. They aren't avidly animal rights campaigners, they are much more on the health side of veganism, so there's not so much the preaching, and they don't show you horrible stuff about animals that a lot of people are worried about with vegan content. So yeah, they were sort of the first step into a vegan diet for me. And I also was kind of pushed by Cinzia Dubois she's a booktuber, I'm sure you all know her. She does a few videos about veganism. She did one about 2 years ago. It was just before I went vegan, and though it had been playing around in my head and I knew I was kind of going to do it, that kind of pushed me. And also, one last mention would be Vegucated, which it used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it is anymore. The programme which follows meat eaters and dairy lovers who experiment with a vegan diet for 6 weeks, and there is some of the nasty stuff in there. You do see animals dying and you do see bad conditions, and they sort of go around farms and things like that. But that's something that really started me thinking about the dairy industry and the bad things that go on there. So yeah, I will link all these things down below as mentioned. I would recommend checking them out. Then number 3 is, what is a favourite dish or meal of yours? Now I'm going to go with a staple for I think a lot of vegans, and I'm going to say chilies and curries. I adore chilies and curries. Like, chili is probably right up there for my favourite thing. I just love it. It's so easy to just shove a few beans in a pot, can of tomatoes, bit of stock, chili, oh, just so good. And I also love curries. I'm really getting into making curries at the moment because, again, they're just so easy. If you've got curry powder in the cupboard, tin of tomatoes and some vegetables in the fridge, you can just knock up a curry like that. I adore both of those things, and they are real comfort foods for me. Though I have realised recently that I eat a lot of rice. Most of my dishes are either rice or pasta, which is not great for the waistline, so trying to sort that out. But yeah, those are definite go-to dishes for me. Number 4, what is a recipe you're looking forward to attempting this holiday season? Something with autumnal/winter flavours. To be honest, I don't really have any recipes coming up that I'm going to try. I keep meaning to go online and hunt down some new recipes because, as I said, my diet is predominantly rice and pasta, which isn't good, and I know that. But it's not happened so far because, you know, time. But I have recently discovered a minestrone recipe in a book called Keep It Vegan, and the book itself is not the best recipe book. I don't really get along with it that well, but this minestrone recipe is just on point. It's got kale in it, and pasta and tomatoes and carrots, and it's just really comforting and also really autumnal and wintry. It almost reminds me, the taste and the smell of it almost reminds me of Christmas dinner. I think it's because of the curly kale, but yeah, so good, so good. Anyway, number 5, what vegan cookbook would make a great present for a vegan friend? So I've got a few here. I already mentioned the Happy Pear. They also have 2 cookbooks out. These are not amazing cookbooks. I find that you do have to sort of mess around with the recipes quite a lot. For example, they always use water, and I always replace that with stock because stock is just, you know, so much tastier. And I also find I have to fiddle around with the flavourings to sort of get it to suit me. But as a staple place to get some recipes, these are really good. There's actually a curry recipe in here and also a soup recipe, which I use all the time. And there's a paella recipe in here, which is really lovely. They aren't actually vegan cookbooks, though most of the recipes in them are vegan. As I said, the Happy Pear aren't particularly vegan themselves, so sometimes they do use locally sourced dairy products, but if they do, it's always organic cheeses and stuff like that. And honeys sometimes they use, but it's all stuff you can replace, and for the most part I'd say 99.9% of the recipes are vegan. So yes, I would recommend those. And I've also got a book that I actually picked up after seeing it on Angelica's channel, and that is Vegan with a Vengeance. Again, it's not the best in terms of the recipes. I find that a lot of the time crucial ingredients are missed off the ingredients list. What I really love about this one is the fact that it's got a lot of sort of chatty bits in it. So it's got a lot of the author's story with veganism and how she came to find these recipes and just her love of food, and it's a really comforting little read, and there are some fantastic recipes in here. Again, there's a curry in here, also an aubergine dish I make quite often. There is also a lot of stuff in here which is kind of recipes that I can't do because I don't have access to the stuff. So the author of this book, who I should say by the way is Chandra Moskowitz. She lives in Brighton, and obviously there's quite a large vegan movement in Brighton. I do not live in Brighton. I live in a small town in Somerset, so you know, vegan recipes and sort of specialist ingredients are quite hard to come by, so there are a lot in here that are inaccessible to me. But if you live in a big city, you could probably get everything that is mentioned in here. And again, if you use your mind and sort of work things out when some things are missed off the recipe list, then you'll be fine. Number 6 is what's a book that you personally want to read to further investigate veganism. To be honest, I think you get to a point with your veganism journey where there's not much more that you can learn. I think a lot of the time it becomes just repeating the stuff that you already know. So there's not any books that I particularly want to read. I think I know as much about the subject as I really want to know at the moment. But there is a book that I want to recommend that I think is worth reading if you're quite new to the concept of veganism, and that is Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. Now admittedly I read this just when I was turning vegan. It didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. There was nothing groundbreaking in here, there's no big revelations, but it's just a nice little thing to read, and I think if you're really in the beginning of a vegan journey it would be an interesting one. Predominantly this does look at vegetarianism, but it ends up kind of being about the vegan diet as well. So it's Jonathan Safran Foer had a son and he wanted to experiment with the ethics of feeding that son meat and whether he should raise him on a vegetarian diet. So he goes around and talks to various different farmers, and he visits factory farms and organic farms and just kind of tries to form an opinion of what he thinks of the ethics of farming. I think this is a good one because it's not done from a biased point of view. He's not a vegan himself, and he does visit with farmers who he really likes their ethics and he thinks that they're doing things right. He also visits factory farms where he sees some horrendous things and does describe them in detail. I will be honest, this gets quite graphic, but I liked it because he's not shoving his opinions down your throat. He is kind of taking you on this journey with him, so I think it's accessible for people who are just thinking about veganism, and I would definitely recommend it if you want to get started and put your foot in the water, as it were. Then number 7, the final question is, do you have any vegan YouTuber shout-outs? As I said, Happy Pear, I will link down below. I think they're definitely a good place to go if you're just starting out or if you're just thinking about things. If you're further into your vegan journey, I would recommend Hot for Food. Specifically, Lauren Toyota from Hot for Food has a private channel where she does day in the life videos and what she eats in a day. And frankly, when I first became a vegan, I used to just binge watch them. They're fantastic. I will link both Hot for Food and Lauren's private channel down below. She doesn't do as many what I ate in a day videos anymore, but she started doing journeying vlogs, so when she travels she looks at the places that she eats and things like that, which are quite interesting as well. And I would also recommend Bonnie Rebecca. Now I got a little bit stuck in the loop of Australian vegan YouTubers for a while. It seems to be quite a big thing and there's quite a large community of vegan YouTubers in Australia, and there seems to be a lot of catty infighting, and for a while I went right off it. I started following quite a few people and then I realised that there'd be controversy or everything would blow up and they'd all start fighting, and it was all just a bit ridiculous. But Bonnie Rebecca is one that she seems to be much more genuine than the others. And she is much more on the healthy side of veganism, I would say. She pretty much eats a whole food diet. She goes through periods where she eats raw as well, which I don't particularly agree with. I think that's just a step too far. But it's interesting to see anyway, and again she does what I ate in a day videos, which are quite interesting, and also she's just very aesthetic with her videos. I think she does a lot of Instagram, so she's quite good at setting things up and making things look good, which is always nice. Who doesn't like their food to look good? So yeah, they're 3 that I would recommend. As I say, I will link them down below, and that's the tag. I'm not going to tag anyone because other than the people that Angelica has mentioned, I don't actually know any booktubers who are vegan. But if you're a booktuber and you're vegan, please feel free to do this and link it down below so that I can see your answers, and I will see you next time. Bye!